Hey, welcome to this video. What I wanted to do a little bit ago when so I watched the J.K. Rowling, Witch Trials of J.K. Rowling podcast. I've been following Paul Vanderklay's commentary on it. I think he's a great, insightful person on this side of the intellectual dark web. I also think he's a faithful Christian, so that helps for other faithful Christians that are mucking about here, crawling around the intellectual dark web. I saw ContraPoints' response to the Witch Trials of J.K. Rowling, and I wanted to make a video, and I started outlining it, and then I saw Paul Vanderklay uploaded his response, and it's a long response, but if you like Paul Vanderklay, you should totally watch it. What it made me realize is that ContraPoints isn't our fellow citizen, if that makes sense, and I think that'll hopefully make sense soon. One, they are not a citizen in the same way of the same country with the same common shared will and purpose of people on the right or of Christians. And I think this video is pretty illuminating about how ContraPoints deals with Megan Phelps-Roper, how ContraPoints looks at the history of the left and of the, quote, liberation movement in dealing with bigots. Paul Vanderklay, I think, makes a good point about how ContraPoints basically uses the word bigot in the same way that fundamentalist Christians use the word sinner, as someone to be completely outcast and destroyed. And to be honest, without a Christian ethic, if you have these demon people, which she, by the way, literally calls Republicans the devil of her religious system, I keep saying her and she, their religious system, it's pretty clear if you watch the video, in my opinion, that ContraPoints is a member of another religion, and not in the same way that I would say an atheist or someone like Sam Harris, who is as close as possible, I would say, to someone who lacks ideology, if that's at all possible. ContraPoints definitely does not do that, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit now. What I think is the instinct that Paul Vanderklay had in his video and that I originally had in outlining this is, oh my god, look at all of the tactical blunders ContraPoints is arguing for in this video. ContraPoints is talking about, quite frankly, just using violence to get what you want for your political ends, or at least justifying it, and is admittedly not concerned about changing people's minds. ContraPoints, I think, has this strategic outlook. And what a lot of people will instinctually say is, well, you kind of have to change people's minds, don't you? And I think that's the easy instinctual criticism from the right. But then the next instinct is, well, would we give this advice to someone we disagreed with? Right? If we really disagree with ContraPoints, and ContraPoints in their video is talking nonstop about how they think there are dangerous elements in our society, mostly linked with Christianity and traditional lifestyles, that need to be eliminated, suppressed, and destroyed through the force of government. Okay? That is their moral framework. We obviously don't agree with that. But then you have to ask, are they wrong? ContraPoints makes a pretty good point in the video about the early liberation movement's violence and its success. Okay, I don't think that video was for the general public, but instead, it's quite obviously a video for a redoubt of the left after the Witch Trials of J.K. Rowling. That Witch Trials of J.K. Rowling is clearly, while not intentionally conservative, it's pretty anti-left. It's attacking this attitude that the left has about basically putting people on trial for the accusation of being a witch. And ContraPoints' response is, yes, but J.K. Rowling is a witch. Witches are real, and they're called bigots. And they need to be burned at the stake. Okay, so why would we show kindness? Morally, it's an obligation. Is this like really a question of strategy? Or is this a question of moral obligation? There's a harrowing point in the video where ContraPoints basically says Megan Phelps-Roper can't distinguish between the Westboro Baptist Church and us because Megan Phelps-Roper doesn't believe in morality, and basically admits that if the Westboro Baptist Church was moral, that all of their tactics would be acceptable. But what it happens to be is that ContraPoints is objectively the holder of moral truth, and so it is justified to use the tactics that the Westboro Baptist Church uses because of the confidence in their moral worldview. And I have to ask, a lot of people get frustrated with this. Centrists, moderate leftists, I guess you could say liberals, and conservatives are like, what happened in the free market of ideas? Why are we suppressing all these things? Why can you be so confident? And I have to ask, what incentivizes ContraPoints and people on the left to buy into the free market of ideas? We keep appealing. I keep seeing these tacit appeals to left-wingers. Why don't you just agree that we should be able to debate these things? Well, because that would mean they would lose. I'm sorry, if we believe that, right? So why would we expect them to change their mind? They do not think they would win in the free marketplace of ideas. Why should we think they would win in the free marketplace of ideas? And why would they then sign on to the free marketplace of ideas? ContraPoints in this video, I think very clearly, is assuming the role of order keeper. For good points. ContraPoints has millions of views. ContraPoints has been, their videos, have been admitted to the Library of Congress. ContraPoints is the establishment now, and ContraPoints knows it. I think there are a lot of left-wing people who still have this rebellion narrative that keeps them morally sustained, but I think ContraPoints is making the accurate and helpful admission that we are in charge, and what we have to do to enforce the moral order is enforce it. This isn't a debate. This isn't a quorum. There's a point in the video where ContraPoints basically says that that's what rights are about. Rights are not about, stopping the government from doing stuff. It's in fact about protecting individuals from the inevitable evil people in the world. It's a positive power the government has to punish bigots and destroy sinners and get rid of them. And without it, there are no rights. And I think you have to ask yourself, is ContraPoints wrong? The 1950s, 40s, 60s, there was a conservative establishment, I think some people might argue. Okay? That conservative establishment eventually gave in to the free speech arguments of the left. A lot of people complain about this. They say, oh, the left used to be the bastion of free speech, especially older leftists. What happened? What happened? And it was the conservatives who were trying to get rid of free speech. What happened? What happened? Well, I think it's quite obvious that whoever is in power has no reason to want free speech, because it might jeopardize their control of the zeitgeist. And especially what we can examine in retrospect is that when one idea group is getting more powerful and more influential, the establishment is going to have to react in some way, like destroying it, or like, curtailing it in some way, or else the natural momentum and trajectory of that growing movement will eventually replace the establishment. That is the tool of the left and the tactic that they've used. Why would they instantly forget that as soon as they are the majority establishment, that was the exact tools they used to become the establishment? It's like imagining a rebel king overthrows the previous king, and then once he's in power, he says, oh, and all of my brothers, you guys get armies, and you get territory, and you can collect your own taxes. Well, no. What he's going to do, he's going to kill all of his brothers, because he realizes what he did. And he knows that that was his path to power, was his counterclaim against the previous king. Political violence does work. I think that's ContraPoints' concession here, and I think that's a truth about the world. I think there's this assumption that it's actually secretly not powerful, okay? And then you have to say, oh wait, this is on the previous slide. Why does ContraPoints look at it this way? And it's basically because if you want to have a rallying point, you have to go to the people that you think are on your side, that are part of your nation of a shared identity and will, and you have to say, here's what we should regroup and do. I think ContraPoints was motivated to make this video because it probably appeals to left-wing people who were like, yeah, that went too far. And what ContraPoints is saying now is, no, we didn't go too far. Stop, regroup, keep going, right? And the audience for that is just people that agree with ContraPoints. And what ContraPoints and a lot of these people are doing is identifying the Group A and Group B. And Group B is no longer a part of the nation of people whose minds need to be changed. The point of this video was to change Group A's mind and regroup us and get us together so that we can properly defeat Group B. That's another motif. That J.K. Rowling, Anita Bryant do not need to be convinced, they need to be defeated. Why? Because they are opponents outside of our group. And so, in a way, two nations have been created that are basically at war. How should right-wingers or conservatives or Christians, Orthodox Christians, respond to this tactic? I think there's a big debate about how to be kind or to be courteous. Paul Vanderklay likes to talk about the winsome movement and the antithesis movement within the evangelicals. And I think, in a way, there was a tizzy between Matt Walsh and Jordan Cooper a while back where Matt Walsh made his What is a Woman documentary, and Jordan Cooper, in reviewing it, mostly agreed with the documentary and kind of said, I wish someone that wasn't Matt Walsh said this. Matt Walsh is too aggressive. Matt Walsh is too direct. Matt Walsh is too controversial. But Matt Walsh, I think, has done, if anything, the same realization that ContraPoints has, which is we're no longer a part of the same group. We are fighting, and that this is basically a civil war, a cold civil war. And I think that's a scary thought for a lot of people. It's a scary thought for me, to be honest. I've been taking a pretty hostile tone in this video, but that's actually because I'm so afraid of the implications of that video that it's got me all riled up. But it's kind of unfortunately true that we're kind of in a cold civil war. There are two countries in our nation that aren't the same nation. They're just bound under the same government. Nation A, blue nation if you will, progressive nation if you will, is ascendant. It is dominant. And you can see that because when even Group B's guy, quote unquote, in Trump, got into power, he did not make the changes that returned our nation to some kind of unity or conservatism, and instead he was ousted, he was unpopular, and the only chance he really had at staying in power was against the system, a rebellion against the system, which shows that you're not really a part of the nation, you're not really involved in a meaningful way in the power structure, because you have to use populism and attack against the system to incorporate yourself. And I think that was Matt Walsh's retort to Jordan Cooper, who said he was being too controversial. He's like, you're getting bamboozled by these left-wingers. They do not want to meet you in the form of ideas. They do not want to be pleasant. They do not think people are convinced by debate. And they might be right about that. I mean, I have to ask, 10 years, I would say, of this culture war, you can look back and you can say, oh, for 10 years, Ben Shapiro, the meme of Ben Shapiro or someone like that, is that he destroys people's emotional things with facts and logic. Facts and logic. He will debate anybody. He'll talk about any issue. There's nothing too far. He'll always have an argument. The same thing is true in apologetics. And it's like, are we winning, guys? Like, is this the working strategy? Should we adopt the Matt Walsh strategy? I think the Daily Wire has made the observation that there's a couple fields on fighting this. I think Jordan Peterson, in a way, is the best candidate for evangelism for this Nation B, because what he's doing is he's going out and he's saying, look, the country that we were, the nation that we used to be before we split into two different groups, Let's just go back to that. I mean, if you really watch his old videos, he has nothing uh, uneven to say about left wing versus right wing. He usually will say something like, "Oh, the right wing represents order and the left wing represents chaos, and what we need in our society is a kind of melding of those two energies, and they both have their values." But what that meant was that Group A would no longer be in charge. They accurately identified his attack on and his assertion that both sides are needed, and said, "You are not a part of our group," and he was forcibly kicked out of that nation into Nation B, okay, the red nation, if you will. Even though I think Republican and Democrat are not as useful terms about this anymore. I think there are lots of people on either side of those political party affiliations that actually end up in the other nation. There are lots of people that voted, for instance, not for Trump that are really in Nation B. But what Jordan B. Peterson did, is he took a bunch of the nascent elite of Group A, so intellectually gifted, suburban, upper middle class, at least socially upper middle class, whether or not their wealth is represented by that, their interests align with something like intellectualism, the clerical class, a bourgeois kind of youth. And he said, here is your ideology, and here's your place in Group B. Because Group A, which they did to me, took me out of that country forcibly, sent me into Group B. Here's what we're going to do here. We're the intellectuals. We're the masterminds. We're the Brahmin. We're the priests of Group B, which they didn't have. Because I think, before this split, before this Jordan Peterson send-off, conservative intellectualism really wasn't as much of a thing. But now, because Group A has kicked out their control of heterodox thinkers, intellectuals, those intellectuals have jumped ship to Group B and are commanding now, I think, an intellectual core. And so what I think is happening is the losers, the chronic losers, right? Because that's basically what conservative means, right? Conservative means there is the agenda, right? And there are people trying to stop us from going this way. There's a point on a line and we're heading here, and conservatives are just trying to slow it down or pull it back, versus picking a new counterpoint, right? The term reactionary is a derisive term for conservatives who do that. And it's not expected, and it's also not accepted in common politics to say that we should go back, right? Staying where we are is a very comfortable, not scary concept to the agenda makers, but saying we should go in a different direction or saying we should go back because you guys made a mistake is a scary thought. So the word reactionary is a no-no, and the word conservative is a fine, all right, even though that's becoming a naughty word in Group A country, right? Why would any sane person who believes in a Christian country that we once had sign on to those terms? Why would we play that game? Why not say, here's Group B. We are Group B. Group A has messed up this collective space, and we will no longer participate in it. I think that is the mistake, is that there are valuable resources in Group B that we are wasting fighting this war with Group A to retake something that they will never give up and have no way of losing. That's what ContraPoints is saying in their video. ContraPoints is saying, why concede any space to Group B? We are the moral authority. We must destroy Group B, and they will be destroyed. And what Group B is doing is showing up with a fruit basket and saying, please let me in, and then they're getting shot in the face. Why play this game? Really, why play this game anymore? And this is a very frustrating tone of voice, but it's really the way I feel after watching ContraPoints' video. I can't say that I understand what other response is even possible. Maybe someone can help me out and take me off the ledge in the comment section, but this is really how I feel about this. Thank you. Maybe I'll get back to apologetics sometime soon, but this really was animating my thoughts for the past couple days, and I figured I'd make a video. Thank you.